Awat and Seth are on their way over to the clinic where Marshall Brown operates out of. Edmond, are you also en route there?
Fine. It is something we should look into, so I believe I will be. It'll take me a moment, but
As you make your way, you get probably about halfway there. Awat and Seth probably about 75% of the way there. When you all receive a group text message, you are all very familiar with a cult member by the name of Adam White. He was actually among what you might classify as the inner circle along with you guys. This text message contains only a video file. I'm assuming Awat's phone is still dead.
Yep.
So it's up to Edmond and Seth if you would like to play this said video.
I will play it and hold the camera, hold the phone forward so Art can see it as well.
Edmond?
But thanks.
I will be doing the same.
Okay.
Assuming the street is clear, which I reckon it probably is.
Yes, it is very, very clear.
Parents might have been a bit more capable than when you last experienced them. They can all play videos now, so.
I mean, mine used to play videos, but it's 50 years old by now, so. Surprised the battery hasn't exploded.
The video begins to play. You guys are able to recognize it. It is the Washington Memorial Park. You can see the Washington Monument standing tall in the backdrop. You see Adam, but you also see a dark-skinned, if you were to take a guess, Egyptian-looking female, as she kind of places the camera down on what you would assume is some bracing mechanism, maybe a tripod, maybe it's just a nice ledge, that she can set the phone up against. She doesn't make any sound as she walks. She is as silent as death. It becomes very clear what this video is. As she backs away from the camera, Adam is in a kneeling position, pretty badly beaten. She makes one final look over her shoulder at the camera before she produces a rather large Bowie knife and just brings it across his throat. If that wasn't sadistic enough, she continues to saw until the head is completely removed from the body, and then she tosses it over the camera. The video concludes as she walks right back over to the camera and just stares into it probably for about 10 seconds before cutting the video. We'll start with Edmond, since you two are in different you guys are in different locations.
Well, sight of death is not really going to settle Edmund at this point in his life. He's seen plenty of it. Suppose it's time to get to work. But but there's no way of knowing when that video was recorded. So there's no point in rushing over to the monument.
Do you send anything through the group chat?
I will. Basically just asking, shall we continue to meet up at the clinic or somewhere else to discuss this?
Seth and a what?
I am going to make a voluntary roll here. Yeah, struggling not to throw up. Just breathe, just breathe.
That was Adam, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes.
I've known Adam for a long time. To see that is disheartening, to say the least.
Yeah. No, I quite agree.
Is there any chance we could recover the body, give it a proper, respectful burial?
I can only assume so. I think that's all we can do now, isn't it, really?
Who was that woman?
Unfortunately,
Okay.
that's not really something any of you know necessarily off the top of your head. However, with obviously the message that you got from Dr. Brown and knowing what you do, I mean, you could assume that it's a member of the other cult, but you don't have any actual way to back that up at this time.
Other than circumstances.
So, do we have, in the cult, is there anyone that's a detective or police or anything like that we know of?
You have a few security guards that work at the museum. Obviously, pretty much everybody that works at that museum is part of the cult. Most of these security guards are ex-police, sometimes even ex-military. With the way society has sort of degraded, though, law and order is not necessarily at the top of people's priority list right now. Survival is.
Right. I'm just thinking if we can get it to any one of those who might be in a better position, just get a screen capture, send it to somebody who might be able to get a lead on who she is.
That doesn't take very long for you to do, getting a screen cap of the woman's face as she left it on there for a good 10 seconds or so before she cut the feed. Yeah. From that, you can honestly probably deduce that she doesn't care if you know who she is. With that information, how are you going to respond to Edmond?
Sorry, remind me of what was Edmond's last message?
Where do you want to meet up to discuss this?
I'll message back with what suggests trying to see if the body's still at the Washington Memorial and see if there's a way to recover that and to give him the respectful burial he deserves.
I'll acknowledge this, and I'm on my way.
As you approach from different directions, you do arrive around the same time. The area is as desolate as the rest of DC has been. The pool that used to house quite a bit of water now is caked with algae and the like, obviously from not being kept up anymore. Any sort of filtration system has probably worn out. Purifying that amount of water tends to wear systems down, especially when nobody's been attending to it for probably over a year. The scene is exactly as it was left. As you walk by this pool, you also notice a very, very swollen head. Waterlogged, if you will. As well as a dried blood stain, along with a body that has been dead maybe at least a few days at this point.
I suppose part of the problem is that there isn't really the attendance to just see that things like this don't happen. I'm sorry that your last encounter was like this.
He was a good friend, almost as old as I am. Didn't deserve this.
Well, let's give him a burial. Seth, you're probably the most capable swimmer. I'm not swimming with my leg like this. Somebody has to retrieve the head.
I don't mind. I don't think it's exactly swimming, but here goes.
How deep is the
Oh, it's
hole at the
knee
water
deep.
monument? I can't even
So I
remember.
figured it would be
it's
it's basically a fountain.
I couldn't
Yeah.
remember if it was literally just a glorified puddle or if it was actually a lake.
It's like knee deep.
Yeah.
Okay, but I
It's-
still
yeah.
want to get wet, so you're the young one.
Keep the water out of it. Yeah.
Who's the one that actually handles the body? Not the head.
I could assist. My arms are not what they used to be in my youth.
So the old man and the cripple are the ones trying to lift the body.
Just set me up in here.
As you lift, you hear a few pieces of what sound like clay fall to the ground. If you want to roll me a intelligence occult check. Both of you recognize what this is. Adam was an immortal, very much like Seth, but much older. He talked about times of the ancient Egyptians, so he was at least around during that time. He may have been older, for all you know. The secret to his immortality was the fact that his soul was bound to a small clay figurine. As those clay pieces hit the ground, you know he's not coming back.
Well, I suppose it is a consequence of his particular breed of immortality. It's a shame he never took me up on any of those offers to teach him how to actually survive.
It doesn't take Seth very long at all to retrieve the head. And as you retrieve the head and return to the group, you are also aware of his brand of immortality. And thus you can also even without a roll, recognize what that is. Or what it was at one point.
I'd like to gather up the pieces and knowing how much this was worth to him, I think it's something he'd like to be buried with, for what little it matters now.
I think that's fitting. I had never actually seen his vessel. He always kept it so well hidden. I'm surprised it's here with him. They must have found it somehow.
Or when something has that much meaning, it's not quite like you don't really lose it down the back of the couch like the TV remote.
I reckon chucking it out in the middle of the desert would be a fairly effective way of keeping it safe, but that's just me. Drop it off a boat in the Pacific.
Who knows what happens if at least it's in your possession, at least you have some agency over what happens to it. You've only got yourself to blame, I suppose. Who knows what grave robber or peddler is going to come along and find it buried in the sands and try and hawk it for what it's worth. It's all these doubts that begin to play through your mind as soon as you have those considerations.
Fair enough. I can understand why you'd want to keep it safe, but obviously didn't keep it safe enough. Anyways, no point in letting him rot out in the sun. I don't take it anyone has a shovel in their back pocket. Anyone carrying a trench shovel? Entrenching tools? Anyone? Used to, not anymore. Why did I?
The necessity has not quite the necessity it once was, I'm sure.
It takes you a while, not too long, to be able to find a storefront that you can unfortunately loot in this day and age. Or a shovel.
Store is it?
It's a hardware store.
Okay. I was gonna say, let me grab some cigs while I'm here, but I don't think they've got any in a hardware store.
Probably not, no. As you grab the needed shovel, you do receive a message from Brown that he has entered surgery, as that man did start to present a heartbeat. So he's in surgery at this time. He's not going to be available for some time. It's going to be a long one. So he recommends moving on without him for the time being while he tries to save this cultist member's life.
A small spark of hope.
We've got to hang on to them at the moment.
Especially since he has intelligence. That might come in handy.
Well, while he acts on the good of his Hippocratic oath, and I suppose we can only wait and see our friend off to the great beyond.
Where's Adam been hanging out lately? Like, what's important to him? Where do you think he would like to be?
The most important place to him was actually the tomb of the mummies. One of the mummies, from the way he told it, was some relative of his. So he mainly lived in that tomb.
Either a breach of security, or they got him while he was out taking a piss. Happens. But I suppose it can't hurt. We still have cameras and whatnot running. They might have seen something. Something got overlooked. But we don't have any other leads.
The burial does take a couple of, maybe an hour, 2 at the most, depending on how much Awat cares about giving funeral processions, or Seth, depending on which one of the two you would decide.
Alwat would do it old school, eremic.
I'll do. Seth will do a eulogy, just to more from a personal perspective.
All right. We'll assume that this entire affair probably takes 2.5 hours. Emmerich being a rather ritualistic society. Having completed his burial, from what it sounds like, Brown's going to be in surgery for a very long while. So that leaves you with either digging up information back at the tomb to see where this leak came in, or pursuing the relic that you know is in Philadelphia.
I don't think we should jump on across the state line without Marshall with us. I think Dr. Brown would like to be there as well, so I think it might be worth looking for any potential breaches and how they were able to reach Adam, really.
I agree. We should secure home before we venture out.
Was his lead, anyways? It'd be foolish to go without him.
Yes, sir.
Securing HQ.
As you return to the museum, you are once again greeted by the guards, giving you subtle nods. The emptiness of the museum makes it almost seem silly that the guards are still there, but what just happened kind of reminds you why they are still there. The security booth, very small room, located, in the central area, where it's the most secure. With the 3 of you poring over camera feeds for the last couple of days, you don't have an exact time of death. So it's hard for you to pinpoint, we need to be looking at this day. But after about, I'm gonna say around 6 hours of video, you finally do see it. It was in the day of prep, as it kind of colloquially has been known as you guys prepared the ritual. It seems like Adam was doing some preparations when a woman in black leather with the same darkish skin, same facial features, just seems to, for lack of a better word, phase through the sandstone wall, grab him as well as his vessel, and pull him back through the wall, vanishing. It seems like she was traveling through the stone itself.
Great, no leads.
No. Now hold on, that was... And from
Occult intelligence?
I'm going to say that, from a sort of a mass from a sort of very scholarly type leather soft briefcase. Out come loads of journals. If anyone would like to have a look through, see, I know might be something in here regarding that.
I will assist.
Okay, who's going to lead this action?
I'll lead.
He's got the briefcase.
Okay, so
Yeah.
are you going to assist Edmond?
Edmund's not convinced there's any. He doesn't know what he's looking for. Edmund is convinced this is a dead lead because how are you going to track someone that just appeared out of a wall?
I was looking for
Doesn't
just.
matter if we know how
we're
they
looking
did
for-
it. We don't know where they came from or where they went.
So without
unless
without Edmund's help,
specifically, I'll demand him read these journals. He's not going to.
okay. So, Awat, go ahead and give me your intelligence plus occult to see if you add dice to his or if you hinder him in some way.
4 successes.
Oh, very nice.
So go ahead and add the appropriate dice to your pool for the assist.
Intelligence.
Yep, and this is going to be a extended action. Intelligence plus
Okay,
occult.
Plus the 4.
Yes.
Okay, so 6 on the first.
Okay. That is going to represent 1 hour of searching with a target success of 10.
And with the modifier again.
I would also, since you are researching together, Awat, next roll.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Very nice.
3 4s in a row.
Oh, 2.
Okay. This real quick, this is probably going to take 3 hours, assuming that they get it in the next one. What is Edmund doing during these hours here?
Edmund is gonna go look at the wall. You know, maybe it's like there's a hidden room on the other side. Do we have floor plans for tomb? There's a storage room in the back. Like,
You don't necessarily have floor plans for the tomb. You have floor plans for the museum. Obviously, this is hiding in plain sight as an exhibit in the museum. There are a couple of storage rooms nearby, but nothing that would be adjacent to that wall. That wall is essentially flush against the wall of the museum.
what's on the other side of that? Like, what would be the next logical thing on the other side of it? Was there like a building across the street that it would lead to, possibly? Like,
It does lead to just the side street, essentially. It's not an alley or anything like that. It's just not one of the main roads.
okay, well, I'm gonna go to whatever building's on the other side of that street and start checking into basements.
All right.
Because realistically, that's the only way Edmund thinks they could have gotten it.
Go ahead and give me, as you do get out, and obviously you kind of look at that side of the building, realistically. Give me investigation plus wits. And at this time, Awat, could you give me your support roll? So we know how much to...
2 this time.
Seth?
Okay. 2, 9. 5.
This one, obviously, you don't need to reduce the amount of successes, so this is only going to take you guys 30 minutes before you finally come across one specific thing of text.
I can only apologize for the disorderly nature of my notes, but at least maybe you've got some insight into the last 20 years.
What your notes come across is Especially Awat is aware of utterances, the primal powers of the Arisen, as it were. One of these abilities allows its user, depending on strength, to phase through stone-like materials, even up until concrete. It also allows them to fall from great distances and not be injured. And at its maximum potential, seems to encase its user in stone, allowing them to act as some amalgamation of a gigantic golem. Now, Edmond, as you are investigating the wall that is shared with that side of the tomb, you do notice one thing. A set of burnout marks. However, it is not from a four-wheel vehicle. It is from a motorcycle, a two-wheeled vehicle. Now, this is not necessarily out of the ordinary. These streets are not necessarily new. These rubber marks, however, are new. You can tell they're fresh. Within the last couple of days. They are not the faded black. They are pretty fresh and black.
How far do they go? Like,
They,
I presume they stopped, holding the brakes down at some point.
yes. It is relatively close to the corner where they stop. Obviously, you can get kind of a rough estimate. It looks like they turned and crossed in front of the museum rather than going away from the museum. So it does give you at least a direction.
Worth a shot, but they could have just done a large loop. It could be the other direction. Not much of a lead. So this wall that the tire marks are next to basically is the same wall. It's not on like a different floor.
No, it's
like,
not a different
so
floor.
He was grabbed basically on the other side of the wall I'm standing next to.
Yes.
Okay. So this is obviously probably what I'm looking for, but it's a shot in the dark lead.
Now, one other bit of information Seth and Awat pull up. Since this is an utterance, it is not something that a person necessarily could do unless they had a very, very strong connection with an Arisen.
Someone like me. Because she didn't seem to be of the Arisen.
Clearly not. Well, if she was, then perhaps reaching the end of her earthly tenure. But
I think it's unlikely for an Arisen to go to the trouble herself to take out a single member of another cult.
oh, I agree.
More likely it's a trusted companion, confidant. And seeing the utterance she used, likely a Siddiq like myself. We can use a limited amount of our Arisen Master's power.
No, of course. However, like you say, that seems to be a very, very close connection for that level of ability. I have some a few things I can dabble with myself, but nothing quite of that ilk.
And also, on that note, a little difficult to kill. Sadiq are notoriously thick-skinned.
Absolutely. Perhaps it's not our place. All the more reason to bring our patrons back from their death-like slumber, I suppose.
So, whenever Edmond limps back into the building, I will share these findings and suggest a course of action.
And what course of action is that?
Well, we don't know if it's a goose chase yet, so I propose sending perhaps just a drone to scout that direction of the city, see if we see any activity. Shouldn't be too hard to see another cult moving around in a dead city, essentially. Looking for perhaps a motorcycle. It could just be in a building, though, but it's a better shot than just walking there ourselves and getting lost.
As he mentions a motorcycle, that would bring that memory back to Awat and Seth's mind as they exited the building earlier this day. Or might be pushing yesterday, depending on. Since it was 6 hours plus 3 extra hours. We'll say it's getting close to the next day. But you remember the motorcycle that took off as you exited the building.
Oh.
No,
When
guy.
I was speeding. And that went which way again? Talking to Seth.
Was it?
It
I don't
went.
think you said which direction.
It just went by the museum on the main road in front of it. But I guess if
Okay, so
from your
right to
left,
left to right.
yeah, left to right.
Yeah, left to right. Okay. I assumed it was just someone taking advantage of a complete lack of any kind of enforcement, living while they still can.
Likely could be, but it's our best lead.
No, I agree. Now, in hindsight, and with a little bit of perspective,
In hindsight, you couldn't have known.
absolutely.
Don't beat
Well,
yourself up over it, kid.
Occam's razor.
Now,
Most likely explanation is the most plausible explanation is most likely the correct one. Makes sense to follow it. It's as Edmond says, it's our only lead.
I would advise caution. If this is a Sadiq, she's likely part of this rival cult that's been troubling you. And when you tried to awaken my masters, you only managed to awaken me. We don't know what they've managed with theirs. If they have successfully raised their master, then we are far outclassed as their enemies.
But we'll never know until we see, huh? Sure, it could
Also-
be risky. What do we gotta lose? You see,
Only your lives?
Also, I'm going to happy to make a roll for this. Go for a little bit of psychological insight of They seem determined to prevent us. If they had that kind of power behind them, we would be insignificant in whatever endeavors we undertake. I think that despite all their efforts and their successes so far, I think they've yet to achieve anything.
So it could be they're very desperate to awaken their own before we do ours.
It seems that way. They're making a lot of noise for somebody who's already played their hand.
So, question. I'm gonna assume no. Are there any other cults working with 0 Hour in the area, or are we the only one that officially we know of?
The only one that you officially know of.
Yeah. Bunch of children who are now working to do their own nefarious deeds against the betterment of society, mankind. If they sought to awaken their masters, surely they would have sought aid from other organizations like our own sponsor.
All I can assume is that while they have the necessary relics and sekhmet and whatever they might need for their rituals, my theory is they don't know how to do it. Only a thought, but...
Well, no way to know unless we go ask them, eh?
I think it likely they were in the same boat that we were. You know, like I mentioned, you only managed to awaken myself. Perhaps they only managed to awaken this woman.
Quite
They may have the correct rituals and lacked the fuel as was stated.
But they have beaten us to several relics in the past years. Either these relic leads were completely wrong and they have actually not obtained any relics, or they don't know how to do it. They should have the fuel.
Well, like you say, there's only one way to find out. I think it's...
That drone. How new is it? Edmond.
What was the question?
How new is that drone?
I don't know when they stopped making them, you know?
Nations.
I mean, at this point, it's probably like a decade old.
Well, who has the drive skill to maneuver this thing?
The guy who owns it. I can fly a chopper, a drone ain't the problem.
Luckily, this isn't the first time you've employed this drone, so your systems are up to date. However, it does not have a lot of battery life left. There is a good chance that if it's a decent distance away, it's not coming back, so you'll just have your video feed.
Can't just, like, plug it in? We have power in this building anymore?
You have backup generators running. Not necessarily the thing that you maybe want to pull the power from to charge it.
This is critical to the mission.
All right.
No, we won't do that. We can always retrieve it later and haul it back. Well, let's see what we can see on half its charge, and if I don't see anything by then, I'll pull it back.
All right. So as you begin to fly this thing, you take it in the direction that you saw, that both Seth and Awat saw this motorcyclist take off towards. You see a few cars on the street. Not necessarily that surprising. People still do live. But no motorcycles. Up until just the moment you're about to pull it back. It is a warehouse. This particular warehouse is located near the... what is it called here? Near the yards. Very, very close to where the old U.S. Navy Museum is. Right on the Potomac River. There is what looks to be a small industrial style boat that seems in relatively good repair and may have seen recent use.
Well,
The motorcycle is parked just outside of the main loading areas. There's still enough charge. If you want, you could take it inside, but at this point I'm going to start requiring drive as you're taking it into a internal area.
well, give the option to these two. We have an area to go look at. Do we want to go there first and then send the drone in? Or shall I send it in now and spook them?
I'm inclined to think that while there have been hostilities, I think it might be worth at least attempting to open up a dialogue.
So you are voting for going there first?
That would be mine, but I'm always one to hear another argument, and I don't want to take a dogmatic approach when another idea might be better.
They have killed a core member of our cult and critically injured another. I don't know if they're open to dialogue, as you put it.
I'm obviously fully aware. I was just hoping we could avoid any further escalations. We don't have the backing, and I'm sure neither of us have got the resources to finance a gang war, as it were.
Well, I don't know what the force still looks like, but I could make a couple calls. Perhaps there's an air base nearby, might still have some birds that can get up in the sky, and we just level the place.
As drained as the world is, I somehow doubt the Air Force will let you borrow some bombs for...
Who's gonna stop me?
I'd like to thank the Air Force, but...
I'll have you know, although I haven't actually been a card-carrying member of the Force in a few decades, But you are probably right. It's another problem.
Not to mention, quite probably a war crime. So,
War crime. How many people do you think are left in Geneva?
I don't know. There's inevitably one who is still running administrative.
UN council meeting. I am not a sovereign nation. I cannot legally commit a war crime. But
I don't know the
specifics here. Shall I fly her in or no? We are on a battery charge here.
I've said what I think. I will leave it to your discretion, and you will have my blessing, whatever you decide.
What?
I'm of the opinion if they attacked us first without provocation, I don't really want to be dealing with them peacefully since they killed a dear friend of mine. That's my 2 cents, as it were.
So,
Although I recognize dialogue is an option, I don't personally agree with it because I am rather angry at the moment.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll fly her in, see how many people we're dealing with, see if it's someone we can deal with, violently, or if they do truly outnumber us, then perhaps dialogue will be our only option.
as the drone flies in, you come across a scene that you are all very familiar with. Individuals number 15. So, about on par with your cult size. All of them in various prostration positions as they begin to what looks to be the beginning of the summoning awakening ritual. One coffin, sarcophagus if you will, is placed in the center. Awat. And
Do I recognize it?
I actually think at level 1 Scorpion Cult, you can all read and speak Aramaic. Emric, sorry.
2 dots is the language Aramaic.
Does anybody have 2 dots?
I do, yeah.
So, Seth and Awat. Roll me perceptions. Because it is still flat, the drone is still pretty far away, but the writing is somewhat big. It is still going to require you guys to kind of strain to read it.
Would the specialty in Aramaic religion apply?
No, because you're trying to see here.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not trying to necessarily read it.
2 for a while.
Oh. Nope. Got nothing.
As you read the side of the sarcophagus, you very quickly recognize it as a funeral text. That is not necessarily anything to note until you get to the very end. And may Amat the Devourer have their feeding. You have just finished listening to this week's episode of Mummy the Curse 2nd Edition Final Hours, part of the Domain Gaming's Contagion Anthology, written and told by Wyverian. A special thanks to you, the listener. And if you wish to continue supporting us, subscribe, like, and share. As always, comments are welcome. Until the next chapter, don't stop asking yourself, in the fading memories of this dying world, can we discover a way to survive?